April 14, 1943, near Hearne, Texas, just after dawn. The train lurches to a stop with a hiss of steam and grinding steel. For a moment, there is only silence inside the boxcars, no shouting, no rifle bolts snapping open, just the heavy breathing of men who have learned to expect the worst. You can almost smell it inside the car, sweat-soaked wool, North African dust still trapped in boots, fear, stale and metallic, clinging to everything. Obergefreiter Karl Weiss grips the wooden slat beside him as sunlight cuts through the cracks. He squints. This light is different from the desert, softer, wider. It spills in like it has nothing to hide. Someone mutters, "Texas," as if saying the name alone explains what comes next. Karl had imagined this moment 100 times since Tunisia fell. He had imagined fists, dogs, barbed wire crowned with machine guns. He had imagined hunger, real hunger, not the rationed kind, but the slow hollowing out kind that propaganda films warned awaited German soldiers in American hands. The doors slide open. No one shouts. No one strikes them. An American military policeman stands outside, chewing gum, sleeves rolled up, helmet tilted back like he's guarding a county fair instead of enemy prisoners. Another MP yawns. A third checks a clipboard. "All right, boys," one of them says casually, "let's move." "Boys." Karl blinks. He looks down at his uniform, the faded palm tree insignia of the Afrika Korps, the sun-bleached field gray that once meant elite status. He looks at the man next to him, Unteroffizier Franz Kerhler, whose hands are shaking despite himself. This is wrong. They climb down from the train. No rifle butts, no barking dogs, just dust, mourning birds, and the smell, God help him, the smell of fresh bread. Not imagined bread, real bread. From somewhere beyond the fence, warm air carries the unmistakable scent of a bakery. Yeast, crust, flour. Karl's stomach tightens so suddenly it almost hurts. Ahead of them stretches the camp, long wooden barracks newly built, clean, straight. A mess hall with smoke curling gently from a chimney. Water towers painted white against a blue Texas sky that seems too big to be part of a prison. Barbed wire is there, yes, but it's not bristling with menace. No watchtowers every 50 meters. No searchlights sweeping like accusatory fingers. Karl hears someone whisper, "Is this a trick?" He wonders the same thing. They are marched, not shoved, toward processing. An American officer, a captain by the silver bars, stands at a folding table. He doesn't glare, he nods. "Name?" the interpreter asks in careful German. Karl answers. "Rank." "Unit." Each question is methodical, calm, like checking into a hotel rather than surrendering after a lost campaign. Then something happens that no one had prepared them for. They are fed. Not later, not after interrogation, not after punishment. Now, metal trays are handed out, thick slices of white bread still warm, a ladle of stew heavy with meat, potatoes, coffee, real coffee, not chicory, an apple placed on the tray like an afterthought. Karl stares at it, waiting for the catch. There is none. He bites the bread. The crust cracks softly, steam escapes. For a second he closes his eyes and the desert disappears. No flies, no heat shimmering off burned-out trucks, no retreat, no Rommel speeches crackling over radios. Just bread. Around him, men eat in stunned silence. No one speaks because speaking might shatter whatever illusion this is. France finally whispers, "They're fattening us up." "For what?" Karl whispers back. Neither answers. That afternoon they are shown their barracks. Clean bunks, mattresses, blankets, showers with hot water. Hot water. Karl stands under the spray longer than allowed, letting months of dust and fear wash down the drain. He presses his forehead to the tile and laughs once, quietly, before catching himself. This is America. That night, lying on his bunk, he listens to unfamiliar sounds. Crickets, distant laughter from the guards, a harmonica somewhere, no screams, no boots in the dark. He thinks of the films back home, the snarling American caricatures, the warnings, captured means destroyed. He thinks of the apple he saved, turning it slowly in his hands before eating it like a sacrament. Something doesn't add up. And for the first time since the Desert War ended, Carl feels something more dangerous than fear. Doubt. Because if the Americans lied about this, what else had they lied about? The morning bell rings at 600. Not a siren, not a shouted order, just a bell clear, almost gentle, carried across the camp by the cool Texas air. Carl opens his eyes expecting confusion, maybe pain. For a split second he forgets where he is. Then the barracks ceiling comes into focus. Clean boards, no cracks, no mold. Sunlight slipping through the windows like it belongs there. Across the room, France is already sitting up on his bunk, staring at his hands. "You hear that?" France asks. Carl nods, reveille. It doesn't sound like a prison. They dress quickly. Old habits die hard, belts straight, boots laced tight. Even here, even now, they cling to discipline like armor. Outside, the camp is already awake. POWs from other boxcars, Italians, Germans from different units, even a few Luftwaffe ground crew shuffle into formation. No one is pushed. No one yells. An American sergeant walks the line, counting, nodding, checking names against a clipboard. The guard towers loom above, but the soldiers inside them lean on the railings, relaxed. One lights a cigarette. Another jokes with a buddy. Carl watches their faces. He is trained to read enemies, tension, hatred, contempt. He finds none. Breakfast is served in the mess hall. Eggs, scrambled yellow soft, more bread, jam, milk. Milk! A murmur ripples through the room. Someone laughs nervously. Someone else mutters a prayer before eating. Carl remembers standing in North Africa, counting biscuits, breaking them in half to make the hunger last longer. He remembers men fainting in the heat. He remembers being told that Americans were weak, spoiled, incapable of sacrifice. So why do they feed their enemies like this? After breakfast comes the waiting. That's when the fear creeps back in. Interrogation, Carl thinks. It has to be interrogation. They are marched, not rushed, to a low wooden building near the edge of camp. A sign reads, Administration. Inside, Carl sits across from a desk. On the other side is a man in uniform, lieutenant bars on his collar, clean-shaven, young. Too young, Carl thinks, to be this calm. An interpreter sits nearby. The questions begin. Name, unit, rank, where were you captured? Carl answers carefully, offering nothing extra. He has rehearsed this. Every German soldier has. The lieutenant listens, writes, nods. No raised voice, no tricks. Then the questions stop. The lieutenant closes the folder. That's all. The interpreter says. Carl waits. The lieutenant looks up and meets his eyes. You'll be assigned work details later this week. Paid work. Carl blinks, paid. The interpreter hesitates, then repeats it. Paid, according to Geneva Convention rates. Carl almost laughs, but stops himself. Any medical issues? The lieutenant asks. No, Carl says automatically. The lieutenant studies him for a moment. If that changes, report it. And just like that, Carl is dismissed. No threats, no coercion, no psychological games. He walks back into the sunlight feeling off balance, like the ground itself has shifted. By midday, rumors sweep through the camp faster than the Texas wind. They get paid to work. There are no beatings. They say we can write letters home. That's impossible. Someone insists it's all temporary, that the Americans are soft now, but cruelty will come later. It has to. No enemy behaves like this without an ulterior motive. That afternoon, Carl is assigned to a work detail repairing fences on a nearby farm. They march out of camp under guard, 2 MPs for 20 prisoners. The guards don't even shoulder their rifles. The farmer is waiting when they arrive. Middle-aged, sunburned, he tips his hat. "Morning," he says, smiling like he's greeting hired hands. Carl doesn't understand the words, but he understands the tone. They work until late afternoon. The sun beats down. The work is honest, hard but familiar. And when it's over, the farmer hands the guards a crate of cold sodas. Cold sodas. One is passed to Carl, glass bottle, condensation dripping down his fingers. He hesitates. The MP shrugs, "Go on." Carl twists the cap. The hiss startles him. He drinks. It's sweet, too sweet, almost painful. That night back in the barracks, the men talk in low voices. "This isn't America," someone says. "This is a show camp." "For the Red Cross," another adds. Carl says nothing. He sits on his bunk, turning the soda bottle in his hands, studying the unfamiliar English letters. He thinks of his mother in Hamburg, rationing bread, of bombed streets, of speeches about enemy cruelty. He thinks of the lieutenant's eyes, not cold, not kind, just professional. Before lights out, an MP walks through the barracks. "Tomorrow's Sunday," he says. "Optional church services, Catholic and Protestant. Anyone who wants to attend, be ready at 9. Church. Optional." Carl lies awake long after the lights dim. If this is a lie, he thinks, it is the most elaborate lie he has ever seen. And if it is, then the world beyond the barbed wire is not what he was taught to fear. The bell rings again in the darkness, marking the end of the day. Carl stares at the ceiling, realizing something quietly terrifying. Punishment isn't coming. Understanding is. Sunday morning arrives without urgency. No shouted orders, no boots kicking bunks, just sunlight slipping through the windows and the low murmur of men waking on their own. Carl sits up slowly, listening. Somewhere outside a bird sings, not the harsh cry of desert crows, something lighter, almost cheerful. Across the barracks, a handful of men are already buttoning their tunics. Church, Carl realizes, voluntary church. France looks over, "You going?" Carl shrugs, "I want to see it." They walk across the camp under escort that feels more symbolic than necessary. The chapel is a converted hall, wooden benches, a simple cross, an American chaplain waiting at the front. He nods as they enter. No speeches, no glares. The hymns are familiar, German, sung quietly at first, then stronger as voices remember how. Carl doesn't pray, he watches. He watches guards remove their helmets at the back of the room. He watches an American soldier help an Italian POW find a seat. He watches the chaplain speak of home, of endurance, of surviving the war with one's soul intact. No mention of politics, no propaganda, no America First sermon. Afterward, as the men file out, the chaplain offers handshakes. "Stay strong," he says through an interpreter. Carl nods, unsure how to respond. That afternoon, something happens that spreads faster than any rumor. Baseball. It begins innocently enough. A group of American guards are tossing a ball near the fence, laughing, arguing over rules. A few POWs stop to watch. One of the MPs notices. "You fellas play?" he asks. Blank stares. The interpreter explains. Some of the Germans had seen the game in films, fast cuts, cheering crowds, but none have played. The MP grins. "We can teach you." Within minutes a bat appears, gloves, chalk lines scratched into the dirt. Carl stands near the fence, arms crossed, skeptical. France steps forward first, curiosity overpowering caution. The rules are explained slowly, demonstrated, repeated. Then France swings. He misses completely. Laughter erupts, American and German alike. France laughs too, embarrassed but smiling, the sound unfamiliar on his own lips. When Carl finally takes the bat, it feels wrong in his hands, heavy, smooth. He swings and connects. The crack of the bat echoes across the camp. For a moment, everyone freezes. The ball arcs high, spinning against the blue sky. It lands beyond the chalk line. The MP whistles, home run. Carl doesn't know what that means, but the cheers tell him enough. For the rest of the afternoon, uniforms blur into something less defined. Guards explain rules. POWs argue calls. Someone keeps score on a scrap of cardboard. It feels dangerous, not physically but ideologically. This is not how enemies are supposed to behave. That evening after dinner, Carl sits outside the barracks with France, watching the sun sink low and red. "This is wrong," France says quietly. "They're making us soft." Carl shakes his head. "No, they're showing us something." "What?" Carl searches for the words. "Normal." Letters begin arriving that week. Not censored to the bone, not delayed endlessly. Real letters forwarded through the Red Cross. Carl receives one from his sister. Hamburg has been bombed again. Their street still stands. Food is scarce. She asks if he is alive. He reads it twice, then again. That night he writes back, careful at first, then more freely. "I am treated well," he writes, unsure if it's allowed. "I eat enough, do not worry." He hesitates, pen hovering. "They are not what we were told." He crosses the sentence out. Leaves it in. As days turn into weeks, the cracks widen. Medical inspections are thorough. A POW with a festering wound is treated immediately. Dental care is offered. Glasses are issued to men who can barely see. Carl watches an American doctor kneel to speak eye level with an Italian private, explaining a procedure with patience. He remembers German field hospitals, the shouting, the hierarchy, the indifference. Work details expand: farms, road repair, warehouses. Each man is paid a few cents per day, credit to spend at the camp canteen. Carl stands in line one afternoon, holding his pay slip, watching as men buy soap, cigarettes, writing paper, chocolate. Chocolate. He buys a bar and breaks it in half, sharing it with France. "They're buying our loyalty," France mutters. Carl considers it. Maybe, or maybe they don't need to. The realization comes slowly, then all at once. It happens during a movie night. A screen is set up outdoors, folding chairs. The film is American: music, dancing, laughter, nothing political, nothing about the war. The POWs sit in silence at first, then someone chuckles, then more. Carl watches faces soften in the flickering light. These men are not being re-educated by force. They are being exposed. And exposure is more dangerous than any interrogation. Because propaganda relies on distance, on ignorance, on never letting the enemy feel human. As the film ends and the screen goes dark, Carl feels something shift inside him, something irreversible. If this America exists, then the Germany he fought for may not. And that thought, once planted, refuses to leave. The realization doesn't arrive like a blow. It seeps in. Quiet, persistent, impossible to scrub away. Carl notices it first in the small things, the way guards say please, the way complaints are answered instead of punished, the way mistakes are corrected, not exploited. Weeks pass. Summer settles over Texas, thick and hot, cicadas buzzing like static in the air. The camp adjusts to a rhythm that feels dangerously close to normal life. Too normal. One afternoon, Carl is assigned to a new work detail, harvesting cotton on land just outside town. The guards barely speak as they walk. One hums an unfamiliar tune. The town itself is small. Wooden storefronts, a church steeple, a gas station with a faded Coca-Cola sign. Civilians pause to watch the column of POWs pass. Carl braces for hatred. It doesn't come. A woman steps out of a bakery and hands the guards a paper sack. Inside, still warm rolls. She smiles at the prisoners too. "Y'all be careful in this heat," she says. Carl doesn't understand the words, but the meaning is unmistakable. At the field, they work alongside hired American laborers. No segregation, no shouting, just shared labor under a shared sun. A young American farmhand offers Carl his canteen. Carl hesitates. The man shrugs, "Suit yourself." Carl takes it. The water is cool. That night, the camp buzzes with quiet conversation. They let us work outside the fence. They trust us. That's a mistake. Carl lies on his bunk, staring at the ceiling again. He thinks of guards standing casually near open gates, of rifles slung low, of no dogs, no chains. If they wanted to escape, they could try. The thought frightens him more than it tempts him. Because what would he run back to? The answer comes unexpectedly. A new group of POWs arrives, fresh captures from Italy, gaunt, angry, still armored in certainty. They expect cruelty. Carl watches them step off the train, shoulders tense, eyes hard. He recognizes himself in them. At dinner, one of the newcomers scoffs at the food. "They'll starve us later," he says loudly. "This is theater." Carl says nothing. He watches as the man eats every bite anyway. Days later, during a baseball game, that same POW refuses to participate, sneering at the idea. "Circus tricks," he mutters. Carl remembers thinking the same. Then the man receives his first letter from home. Carl sees him sitting alone afterward, head in his hands. That night, France whispers, "They're breaking." Carl shakes his head. "No, we are." The camp library opens that month. Shelves of books, German translations, newspapers carefully delayed but real. Carl picks one up with trembling hands. He reads about Stalingrad, about Sicily, about losses that official broadcasts never mentioned. He reads American newspapers too, open criticism of their own government printed in black and white. Criticism. Aloud. He brings the paper back to the barracks. Men gather around. "Is this real?" someone asks. Carl nods slowly. "It must be. Why would they lie to themselves?" The question hangs in the air like smoke. One evening, an American MP named Johnson, middle-aged, soft-spoken, sits on a crate near the fence, watching the POWs play cards. "You miss home?" he asks Carl through the interpreter. Carl hesitates. "Yes." Johnson nods. "Me too. Been away almost 2 years." Carl frowns. "You're not a prisoner." Johnson chuckles. "Sometimes it feels like it." The idea unsettles Carl more than any lecture could. This man chooses to be here. The realization lands heavy. America doesn't need to convince these prisoners with force. It only needs time. Because every day spent here erodes the certainty they arrived with. Every hot shower, every fair wage, every shared laugh over a missed baseball swing. The camp commandant announces something new at roll call. Next month, the interpreter says, there will be organized sports leagues, voluntary. Laughter ripples through the ranks. Voluntary. That word again. Carl realizes he no longer scans faces for cruelty. He scans them for consistency. And consistency is the most dangerous thing of all. Because if kindness is consistent, then it isn't a trick. Late that night, Carl opens his footlocker and removes the last thing tying him to the world he left behind. A folded propaganda leaflet he had kept since training. Bold letters, strong promises, simple truths. He reads it once more. Then he tears it in half. And then in half again. As the scraps fall to the floor, Carl understands the real purpose of this camp. Not imprisonment, exposure, and once exposed to a different reality, there is no unseeing it. The change is no longer subtle. It announces itself in posture, in tone, in the way men speak when they think no one is listening. Carl notices it during roll call one humid morning when a POW cracks a joke about the war ending before winter. No one snaps at him. No one invokes honor or duty. A few men even nod. That would have been unthinkable months ago. The camp has settled into late summer. Dust hangs in the air. The cicadas are relentless. Baseball games now draw small crowds, POWs on one side, guards on the other, cheers overlapping until it's hard to tell who belongs where. Carl plays regularly now, not well but earnestly. After one game, an MP tosses him a towel. Good hustle. Carl smiles without thinking. That night, France sits on his bunk, elbows on knees. "Do you think," he begins, then stops. Carl waits. "Do you think they'll let us go home?" Carl answers honestly, "Eventually." And then what? That question lands harder. Letters from Germany have grown shorter, more cautious. His sister writes of shortages, of air raids, of neighbors disappearing. She asks questions Carl cannot answer. "Is it true," she writes, "that the Americans are different?" Carl stares at the page for a long time before replying. "Yes," he writes, "they are." He doesn't elaborate. He can't. Because how do you explain dignity to someone who has been told it only exists on one side of a border? As autumn approaches, lectures are offered in the camp. Voluntary, of course, classes in English, in mathematics, in engineering basics for those who want them. Carl attends one out of curiosity. The instructor is a civilian. No uniform, no agenda. He explains the principles of American industry, standardization, mass production, interchangeable parts. Carl listens, fascinated. This is not bravado, this is structure. He remembers the chaos of German supply lines, the improvisation, the constant shortages. And for the first time, he understands something deeper than kindness. He understands inevitability. The war seen from here is not a clash of ideologies. It is a mismatch of systems. That realization spreads quietly. One evening, a newly arrived POW loudly praises Germany's final victory. The barracks go silent. No one argues. No one agrees. They simply turn away. That silence is louder than dissent. Near Christmas, the camp decorates, modestly, pine branches, a small tree in the mess hall. The guards organize a holiday meal. Turkey, potatoes, pie. Pie. Carl sits at the long table, surrounded by men who once swore never to surrender, never to doubt. He watches as an American chaplain offers a short blessing for everyone present. No flags, no politics. Just gratitude. Carl thinks of the moment he stepped off the train months ago, braced for cruelty. He thinks of the bread, the showers, the baseball bat in his hands. He realizes something that unsettles him more than defeat ever did. If Germany loses the war, and now he believes it will, then it will not be because of betrayal. It will be because it built a world too small to survive contact with a larger one. Years later, after repatriation, after ruins and rebuilding, Carl will try to explain this to people back home. Some will listen. Many will not. But he will remember. He will remember the day doubt began, not with a blow, but with an apple placed gently on a metal tray. And he will know that sometimes the most powerful weapon in war is not force. It is contrast. End.